At our class reunion, everyone was gossiping about why I broke up with my ex-boyfriend. Mike, who's usually pretty silent, just asked me one thing. "How long did he chase you for?" "About 10 days, I replied. He calmly said, "Well, I've liked you for 10 years, can I try now?" After catching my boyfriend Jack cheating, I didn't make a scene. I just calmly broke up with him and moved out the same day. My friends were shocked at how quickly I moved on. 10 years of a relationship, I thought you'd be upset at least for a couple of days. I shook my head. He's the one who cheated, why should I destroy myself over it? Plus, I'm actually pretty happy, my health check came back clean. My friend called me mentally strong. She immediately helped me find a new place near the city center. The rent wasn't bad, so I decided to take it. The agent got in touch with the landlord to discuss the lease. "Sir, when can you come by?" "Right away," the landlord said. The agent had the call on speaker, so I could hear the deep, magnetic voice on the other end. I couldn't help but think this landlord had that perfect, dreamy voice like described in novels. Not long after, a young man arrived, and I was stunned by his handsome face. I was about to say something when he looked down at his phone, all cool and distant. The agent introduced him, "Wendy, this is our landlord." The young man gave a small nod, "Mike." I quickly responded, "My name's Lily." Mike nodded politely and took a seat. I hesitated before trying again, I said my name's Lily. Mike lifted his eyes but didn't seem to get why I was repeating myself. Feeling embarrassed, I dropped it and focused on discussing the rental. During the meeting, I kept glancing at the landlord. He took a call, and my friend nudged me, "Something's up." "Do you know this landlord?" I quietly said, "Yeah, he's my high school classmate." But he didn't seem to remember me. Mike was my classmate before we were split into different classes in high school. We even sat near each other in freshman year. Back then, he was already ahead of everyone. With his good looks and top grades, he was the star of the school. I'd heard his dad built the new lab building on a whim. I once shyly asked him for help with a couple of questions. His cold demeanor made me think he found me annoying. Occasionally, I'd peek over at him during class, but he was always either studying or being confessed to. I noticed he'd often look at my back, but realized he was probably just deep in thought about math. We didn't have much interaction, but somehow a rumor started that I was trying to seduce Mike, and that he liked me. I figured it was because people thought I looked like a seductress. But looks are from your parents, right? I tried defending myself a few times, but it was no use. At that time, there was an athlete who wouldn't stop trying to date me. I was exhausted from rejecting him over and over. All the drama took a toll on my grades, too. Mike seemed to have heard the rumors and distanced himself from me. Teen girls are impulsive and irrational. One day, while on cleaning duty, I was shoved into a trash room and locked inside by some girls. I pounded on the door, but it was a secluded area, and everyone was leaving school. I was stuck for a while, the smell making me sick until I passed out. When I woke, I was in the nurse's office, Jack standing next to me. I assumed he saved me and thanked him with tears in my eyes. "Thank you for saving me." He looked a bit shifty but flashed a vague smile, saying, "Yeah, I heard you calling from the trash room during night practice and got you here. Don't worry, nobody saw you." His words touched me, considering how gross I must have smelled. Afterward, Jack offered to walk me home, and I agreed. But as we got to the school gates, I saw Mike watching us. He seemed like he wanted to say something but didn't. He just got into a fancy car and left. Shortly after, Jack asked me out, and I agreed. We dated through the rest of high school and college, until I found out about his cheating. Now that I think of it, Mike moved right after Jack and I started dating. He left without a word, his face looking darker than usual. In sophomore year, we were in different classes, he in the science-heavy class, me in the literature one. We barely crossed paths after that. He never even glanced at me. So now, 10 years later, it's no surprise Mike doesn't recognize me. He's always been leagues ahead, while I'm just the girl renting his place. I watched the Bentley parked downstairs for a bit before it slowly started to move, and I couldn't help but sigh. The little thrill of an unexpected reunion with an old classmate had calmed down during these busy moving days. By coincidence, it seemed like someone was moving in across the hall from me. Just looking at the high-end furniture made me envious for a moment. Once I got my new place all set up, I checked my phone, which had been on silent. Somehow, I had dozens of messages and calls from Jack. They ranged from emotional guilt trips to tearful apologies, to empty promises, and finally to outright tantrums and threats. I didn't bother replying. Instead, I blocked all his contacts. 10 years of a relationship ended just like that, and surprisingly, I wasn't very upset. Just a little disappointed. Disappointed that the sweet guy who used to bring me new books had become so ordinary and dirty. Maybe certain flaws in men are just inborn. Cheating seems to be a compulsory course for them. A leopard can't change its spots. Lying on the couch, I suddenly thought of someone, Mike. Could someone as dignified as him also cheat? Probably. He seemed like the type. The kind who resorts to the silent treatment at the first sign of conflict. Dating him, the girlfriend would probably get zero emotional support, he'd be too busy and never home. Just as I was lost in these pointless thoughts, the lights in my place went out. It was suddenly dark and eerie, yet the neighbor's place was still lit up. I figured maybe the circuit breaker tripped. But then, I remembered hearing about criminals using tricks like this to get single women to open their doors. I hesitated. My bestie was out of town on business, my parents were in another city, and I wasn't that familiar with my coworkers yet. Reluctantly, I dialed the number I had recently memorized. Hello? The guy answered instantly. Still that charming voice. I swallowed. Hi, it's Lily. The tenant who rented from you a few days ago. His voice perked up. I know. What's up? Sorry to bother you, but the power in this apartment just went out. Is it common for the circuit to trip on its own? It shouldn't just trip by itself. I thanked him with a sigh. Okay, thanks. With nothing left to say, I hung up. I was still debating whether to go check the breaker when there was a knock on my door. Startled, I didn't even dare breathe loudly. Already, I was picturing my appearance on tomorrow's crime show. Then a vaguely familiar male voice came from the entrance. Lily, open up. When I peeked out and saw the handsome man in casual wear, I was puzzled. How did Mike end up outside my door? Maybe my shock was too obvious, Mike calmly explained. I just moved into the unit across from you, which is also my place. So he's the owner of the high-end furniture. Once again, I marveled at the world of the wealthy. Mike didn't say much more. He went to the hallway and fixed the circuit breaker. The lights flickered back on. You did the right thing calling me. From now on, if you need anything, just let me know. I'll have someone check the breaker tomorrow, don't worry. I was so grateful. Thank you, Mr. Chris. I wouldn't know what to do without your help. Mike paused, then casually asked, won't your boyfriend stay with you? I awkwardly laughed. I'm single. As soon as I said that, Mike's expression shifted oddly. Worried it might seem like a hint, I quickly backtracked. I mean, I just broke up, so I'm living alone right now. Mike's expression got even stranger, his eyes flashing through emotions too fast for me to catch. Huh? Did I offend him with what I said? As I was about to explain further, Mike suddenly covered his face with one hand, sounding a bit raspy. Got it. I've got some things to handle, so I'll leave now. Good night. Without waiting for a response, he turned and left. I was stunned but didn't know what to say. As Mike walked home, I couldn't help but notice he seemed unusually light on his feet, like he just won the lottery. I scratched my head, confused. The next morning, I went to work as usual. By chance, I ran into Mike as soon as I stepped out. Because of our brief interaction last night, I greeted him first. Morning. He nodded, waiting for the elevator next to me. Just call me Mike. Those two words rolled around on my tongue, and I smiled. Okay. His usually cool demeanor softened a bit. Lily, heading to work? Yeah. How are you getting there? By subway. During rush hour, it's so packed you can barely get on the subway from here, Mike advised. Hearing that, I made a face. No worries, I can squeeze in. The elevator arrived, and Mike pressed the button for the parking level while I hit one. Silence fell between us. Mike seemed deep in thought while I worried about squeezing onto a subway. As the elevator reached the ground floor, I prepared to say goodbye. Mike, I'll give you a ride. Huh? I twisted my head in surprise. Mike had been watching me, his eyes dark and focused. I'll drive you to work. No need to suffer on the subway, he added. You pay so much rent, consider it a tenant perk. By the time I stepped out of his fancy car at my office building, I realized what had just happened and thanked him earnestly. Thanks a lot, Mike. You're welcome. I unbuckled my seatbelt and tried to open the door. But with these luxury car designs, the handles are baffling. I tugged and pulled with no luck. As I was sweating in frustration, a carefully manicured hand reached over and pressed gently. The door clicked open. Mike retracted his hand. Just press it lightly. Embarrassed and avoiding eye contact, I darted out of the car. Once safely outside, I dared to look back and check if Mike had left. He hadn't. Sitting in the car, like he's deep in thought. Just then, he lifts his left hand, elbow resting on the window, and lightly bites on his finger near his lips. The car window's tinted, so I can't see his expression clearly. I turn away, not paying it much mind. But then, as I settle at my desk, a random thought hits me. What a coincidence. When Mike held the door for me, it was his left hand too. Crazy thought, but it kinda feels like I indirectly got a kiss from the guy I admire. The idea puts a small smile on my face for the day. After work, I turned down a colleague's invitation to hang out, deciding to squeeze into the metro and head home. But then, of all people, I bump into someone I can't stand just outside the office. Babe, I finally caught you. Can we talk? Jack stops me. Haven't seen him in a few days, and he looks a bit worn out, not looking too good. Not wanting colleagues to watch the drama, I reply coolly, we're done. Nothing to talk about. And try to walk off. Jack grabs my arm, still trying to keep some dignity, dragging me to a quieter spot. I know I messed up, but you can't give me 0 chances. I love you so much, can't you overlook an occasional distraction? A decade together, and one mistake is unforgivable? I frown in disgust, trying to pull away but no luck. One mistake? Jack, you've screwed up more than once, I just caught you last time accidentally. He argues, isn't the same kind of mistake just one mistake? I snort, in just these past 6 months, you've hooked up with at least 100 different services. I don't even want to imagine what you did when I traveled a lot. Jack, you're disgusting. Get lost, I'm afraid you'll give me something dirty. Jack's face darkens. Lily, 10 years and you're this cold? And curse me with a disease? No way are we breaking up. You better not. Shit. His angry words get cut off when someone kicks him, sending him to the ground. About to be dragged down with him, a hand catches my shoulder. Then that someone forcefully removes Jack's grip on my arm. Get lost. Can't understand human words. Stunned, I turn around. Mike's close, his face filled with clear disdain. Amid Jack's cries of pain, I'm so surprised. Mike, why are you here? My landlord lets go of my shoulder, the usual coolness back in his expression. Picking you up from work. This a tenant perk? Yeah. I'm amazed, this rent's really worth it. Mike looks at me, about to speak, but Jack's back on his feet, seething. He's athletic, one kick wouldn't normally hurt him. Who dared to kick me? Wanna die, Mike? Seeing Mike, Jack's tone turned scared, uneasy. I looked between them, thinking, how did Jack know Mike for years but never mentioned it? They weren't even in the same high school class. Maybe met through work? Mike's eyes flick up, bored. Last name's Joe? So what? Jack's wealthy, but compared to Mike, even his parents don't compare, let alone Jack. Jack forces a smile. Nothing, just kidding around. Just bumped into you playing with my girlfriend. He reaches out, trying to pull me over. Babe, come here, don't hold Mike up. I slip behind Mike, avoiding Jack's touch. Mike smacks Jack's hand away. Don't touch her. Mike, this is just a couple's thing. Shouldn't you stay out of it? Mike nods, saying, in that case, that port partnership deal with your family is off. Jack's face twists for a second. But quickly, he smiles again. No, Mike, misunderstanding. You guys chat, I'll head out. Before leaving, Jack nervously glances at me and Mike, frustration and anger in his eyes, wanting to speak but holding back, an unsettling guilt. Thankful for Mike's help, I cheerfully offer to treat him to dinner. But Mike declines. Sorry, after taking you home, I'm flying out tonight, back Sunday night. But then he adds, we can do Sunday night. I hesitate, won't that be too tight for you? No, I'd love to. I pause, buckling my seatbelt, unsure, glancing back. Mike's looking at me. Our eyes meet. Just like in high school when I'd turn to ask him questions, that same calm gaze. That I'd love to has me looking forward to this entire week. We plan for Sunday evening when he's back for dinner. Unfortunately, I suddenly get an invite for a high school reunion on Sunday. With lots of teachers attending, I can't really refuse. So, I reach out to Mike to discuss. On the phone, Mike's voice sounds extra gentle over the airwaves. No worries, I just got invited to a gathering too. Let's meet after for a late bite. Sure. So, Sunday, I head to the reunion. Barely seated, the former class president throws out some big news. Guys, I invited Mike too. Everyone's shocked. Wasn't he in the science class? The class president's smug. Before splitting up in first year, we were classmates, and Lily was in our class too, right, Lily? I nod, caught off guard. Yeah. Everyone's buzzing, sharing their so-called connections with Mike. Quietly, I pull out my phone, tempted to shoot my landlord a message but decide against it. Wouldn't it be a shock if Mike suddenly sees me when he walks in? Filled with that thrill, soon enough, Mike shows up. As soon as he entered the room, everyone started greeting him. We were all adults in our mid-20s, so it wasn't hard to guess what they were thinking. I was about to follow the crowd and say hi too, but Mike was already heading straight toward me. He glanced at the bag I had casually left on an empty chair. Is this seat taken? He asked. No, I replied. I slowly moved the bag onto my lap. He sat down and naturally asked, got any water? Water? Yeah, flying for too long makes me dizzy. I reluctantly handed him a sealed bottle of water. Mike took it and said thanks. I scratched my face, feeling all the curious looks from our old classmates. I didn't dare say a word. I just silently observed Mike out of the corner of my eye. He clearly remembered I was his old classmate, so why did he act so distant when I was renting the place? Dinner began. As I focused on my food, others started chatting with Mike. Then, someone unexpectedly turned their gaze toward me. Maybe because sitting next to Mike made me a bit of an eyesore. Lily, when are you and Jack getting married? Yeah, 10 years now, you should be engaged, right? I didn't hide it, Jack and I broke up. Everyone was shocked. What? Broke up? Why? After 10 years? Back then, your early romance was something we all envied. How can you just break up like that? Lily, spill the tea, whose fault was it? Curious voices, some well-meaning, others malicious, filled the room. There was some schadenfreude, pity, and a myriad of emotions directed my way. I calmly said, it was his fault. He cheated multiple times. I couldn't forgive him, so that's it. The room buzzed with even more chatter and gossip. Lily, that's so harsh. You're really ending over 10 years like that? A male classmate brazenly chimed in, which guy doesn't mess up a little? Just tolerate it. Yeah, 10 years and you break up? Not worth it. My expression stayed neutral, but I was annoyed inside. I was about to get up and leave the gossip fest when Mike, usually the quiet one, suddenly spoke. Lily. As soon as he spoke, everyone lowered their voices. I paused and sat back down. Had to give Mike, the so-called gorgeous landlord, some respect. What's up? I asked. How long did Jack chase after you? I tried to stay calm but felt a bit embarrassed. About 10 days. Mike nodded thoughtfully, then looked at me seriously. I've liked you for 10 years. Can I chase after you now? The gathering ended on an awkward note, the only upside being no one dared to gossip further about my breakup. Not with Mike sitting right there. I drowned myself in food, stuffing my face. Later, when Mike took me out for a promised late-night snack, I was stuffed. Mike, ever the composed figure, commented, Lily, if you can't eat more, just drink some water. I quickly obliged, only to end up spilling a little. Oh, the water spilled. Need a napkin? He asked. Hastily, I grabbed a napkin, wiping the table like it needed serious polishing. Mike laughed. When someone as cool as him smiles, it's like spring flowers blooming. Lily, why so flustered? He teased, people might think you confessed to me, not the other way around. I met his eyes, my face burning with embarrassment. His gaze was warm and long familiar. It's not that, I mumbled, just embarrassed. Why embarrassed? Can't say no. It's not that. Then don't say no. Huh. Mike, looking a little tense, added, since you're single now, can I try pursuing you? I awkwardly nodded, sure. Mike seemed pleased, wished me good night, and returned to his door across the hall. I went home, ignoring all of Jack's attempts to get back with me, and immediately texted my best friend. Remember my landlord? I typed. Yes. Your super attractive high school classmate. His face, his body, I'm hooked for life. He confessed, I wrote, said he's liked me for 10 years. Get out. Details. Now. My friend demanded. So I spilled the whole story, from our brief high school interactions to recent events. My friend went wild. Imagine him pining for you all these years, watching you date others, heartbroken. Now suddenly he's in your life, always there when you need a place. No wonder that agent heavily suggested that apartment. And those cliché drama leads writing themselves, a super busy, top-tier exec signing rental agreements himself, picking you up for work. So dramatic. After calming down, she concluded, he's serious. Go for it. I know he's serious, just don't know what to do, I replied. My friend mulled it over, don't feel it? Say no. Feel it? Then try. His level of interest isn't something you catch every day. Wish he'd rescued you from that awful relationship back then. I didn't respond, just stared at my phone, feeling a mix of emotions. It was true. If only it had been Mike. In the following days, Mike kept personally taking me to work and back. He never mentioned the public confession, just chatted with me nonchalantly as we ate or carpooled. The mood was relaxed, with a growing sense of chemistry. Who wouldn't be moved by someone like him lowering himself just for you? I couldn't say no. I had always quietly watched him since high school. Apart from his good looks, there was just something about that teenage crush. And of course, my newly acquired skill of opening the car door of a luxury car seamlessly was just proof of my transformation. One day, as I waited for Mike again after work. Oh boy, I got cornered by Jack again. My guess is he found out about Mike confessing to me at the reunion. Plus, his family's company is struggling, probably because Mike's targeting them. Honestly, he's looking a mess. So, did you say yes to Mike? You knew about it, right? I was like, what's it to you? Did you or didn't you? No comment. Is he still going after me? I bet he is. I took something that was his, and now he's out for revenge. It's gonna be war, man, no one gets out alive. I was over his drama, ready to bail from this bad vibe. Maybe it's time for a new job if I keep bumping into him. Just as I was about to walk off, Jack dropped a bombshell. Lily, if I hadn't pretended to be him when he went to find the nurse for you, things would have been different, right? I froze and turned back, stiff as a board. What are you talking about? 10 years of knowing him, Jack read my reaction clear. He was genuinely surprised. You didn't know? How's that possible? Mike never told you? I stepped up to him, ice cold. Spill it or those gross pics of you go public. I'll email them to every business contact your family has. And don't even think of suing me, I'll take you down first. Lily, I'll talk. Jack spilled about what happened back then. Once he was done, I was out of there. Couldn't bear to look at him anymore without getting sick. And then, as I turned, there was Mike just standing there. Who knows how long he'd been watching. Standing tall, calm, but focused. Must have seen that me and Jack weren't about to throw things, so he stayed back. In that split second, those long 10 years flashed by. I'd just been telling my gal pal, if only it were him. Finally realizing it was him, I felt a lump in my throat. I felt happy and a little sad at the same time. I was eager to get to him. Seeing our talk was done, Mike started walking over. Then, out of nowhere, Jack yells at Mike, trying to provoke him. Mike, I knew you had a thing for my girl. 10 years, man. I'm bored now, so she's all yours. Like, a gift from me. You know her sweet spots. Ask, I can tell you. My hands curled into fists. I was ready to slap the nonsense out of Jack. But before I moved, Mike beat me to it. He decked Jack. Jack fell, lashing out, Mike, I don't believe you're cool with her being tainted. Mister. Neat freak, remember? Mike looked down, like Jack was nothing. I don't care. She's pure. All that's dirty is you. And this isn't something you get to brag about. You're not worthy. After that, Jack was gone. He stopped trying to make any waves around me. My friend later snickered, said Jack's getting leashed by his parents because he ticked off my landlord. I just chuckled and turned back to Mike. He was fixing my sink, still in his sharp suit from the meeting. I hesitated, then squatted next to him, cheeks probably red. Mike, why didn't you tell me it was you who rescued me from the trash? Mike pulled out some hair from the drain, glanced at me, and said calmly, didn't need to. It would have been a distraction. We had bigger goals, like college entrance exams. You can seem cool, but deep down, sensitive. I didn't want to derail your future. Not once did he let gossip twist things. He let Jack impersonate him, just to keep my peace. I never expected I would have dated Jack. I mumbled, you must have been so let down by me, right? Mike shook his head. I was disappointed in myself for allowing you to get hurt. But it's all in the past. The trash can, please. I handed it over, eagerly asking, why didn't it matter? Mike tossed the hair, turned to me. 'Cause I like you. Anything you do, you get a pass from me. We were both crouched there, locking eyes. And if I never broke it off with Jack? You'd waste all that heart for nothing. Mike lifted his gaze, totally threw me off. Then I'd try being the other guy. Give me a month, I'd take his place. My cheeks were heating up, this warmth spreading everywhere. I felt dumb for ever doubting him. Some said Mike was all flash, no feelings. But this low-key love was swoon-worthy. His obsession with me over the years deserved careful thought before diving in. I looked at him, serious as ever. "Mike, you should really try harder to win me over." He said, "Okay." Mike started seriously pursuing me. He was my dedicated driver and meal buddy, and he never got tired of it. Whenever he came back from a business trip, he'd bring me some small but unique gift. Because of him, I started paying attention to finance news or interviews with entrepreneurs. He was naturally a frequent guest on those shows. Sometimes, after the serious professional questions, reporters would ask some light personal questions to lighten the mood. "Mike, you're always so young and successful. What's the motivation that keeps you going?" Mike said, "To win over the person I like, so that she only has eyes for me." The reporter misunderstood. "So, it's to stand higher so the person you like can see you more?" Mike just raised an eyebrow and said nothing. Only I knew that he had thoughts of wanting to be the third wheel back then. Until one day, just as I was getting ready to have dinner with Mike, I suddenly got a call from my mom. It was the doctor using her phone. The hospital told me that my mom suddenly fainted. After a quick check, they found it wasn't serious but she needed immediate surgery. My mind went blank in an instant. Dad's been gone for so many years, and she lives alone in a small county. She's not educated, but she managed to put me through college by working odd jobs. After I started working, I wanted her to move to the city with me. But Jack and his parents always subtly made her feel unwelcome. So, she went back to the small town. Jack and I argued about it many times, but he just didn't care. Even when I got really mad, he'd quickly apologize, but the contempt was still there. After the call, I hurriedly tried to get a ticket home, but the trains were all full and the buses had stopped running. I had no choice but to book a ride share, asked for time off, grabbed my bag and rushed out the door. I ran into Mike, who was about to go on a date with me. Seeing my pale face, his originally warm and eager expression vanished. "What happened?" A simple question. And my eyes welled up with tears. "Mike, my mom fell ill. I have to go back. Sorry, I can't make it to dinner tonight." "Dinner doesn't matter." He quickly reached out to adjust my messy collar, then took my bag. "Don't be scared, I'll go with you." Then, Mike drove us all the way back to the county, speeding as fast as he could. That night at the hospital, it was nerve-wracking. I tried to stay calm but couldn't, my hands kept shaking. Mike held my hand. Went to pay the bills, signed forms, and talked to the doctors. Steady and mature, he was like a warm and secure mountain. Thankfully, the surgery was a success. After a few days of recovery, the doctor called me to their office to talk about the next steps. Saying there were no more issues, just keep her well nourished. I finally sighed in relief. After thanking the doctor, I grabbed some breakfast and headed to the ward. As I approached the door, I heard my mom and Mike chatting inside. They seemed to be having a good time. My mom kept laughing and calling him Little Mike. Peeking through the door, Mike was sitting by the bed, gently wiping my mom's swollen hands. He was incredibly meticulous. Always the neat and tidy gentleman, he hadn't slept well for a few days, and even his hair looked a bit messy, half hanging down. The top 2 buttons of his shirt were undone. Casual yet approachable. Thump, thump. My heart raced. This time, the feeling was more about attraction than gratitude. Soon enough, my mom got better and was discharged. She asked me quietly before leaving, "Does this guy like you?" I nodded. She was curious, "Then why not accept him? Or are you still thinking about that Jack?" I glanced at Mike, who was taking an important call not far away, and just smiled without saying anything. After going home with Mike, he didn't come upstairs. He had to rush to a meeting at his office. Taking care of my mom these past few days had delayed him a lot. "I'm not coming back tonight. Eat something, and don't worry about your mom, I've arranged someone to take care of her. Also." He was in a hurry, speaking a bit quick. Just as he was wrapping up, I unbuckled my seatbelt. leaned over the center console and kissed him. I missed and caught his philtrum instead. Feeling embarrassed, I adjusted and finally kissed him on the lips. Mike was stunned for a moment, then his eyes darkened. Then he kissed me back hard. Breathless, we pulled apart. He asked, "Did I succeed in winning you over?" "Yeah, you did." In that moment, Mike's eyes were filled with many emotions. But there was one I understood. His secret crush had finally gotten a response.